Johnny. I'm just sending Blue downstairs because she's just wandering around in the shop. Hi, I'm Rachel Tomlinson. I'm the head teacher of Barrowford Primary School, which is in the town of Barrowford in Pendle in Lancashire, so in the northwest. We've got a very mixed demographic, a very mixed catchment in terms of everything really, socially and financially and everything. Just a kind of a microcosm of society, really, in one place. I was in one of the first cohorts of the graduate teacher programme, which was a bit of a forerunner to teach first. Spent 7 years in class, was a class teacher, and then worked for the local authority for a couple of years, and then came to Barrowford as deputy, and then 2 years later got the headship. When I took up the headship, having been here for 2 years previously as deputy, it was very different school, it's very traditional. And when we talk about the progress that we've made in the last 11 years, it's really interesting because we go, oh, do you remember when we used to, and it's almost, we're almost shocked at the things that used to, you know, that we used to do, because they're so far from what we do now. We sing one in assembly. I don't even know who it's by. It's called You're the Voice, and the children sign it as well as sing it, and it's lovely. I like Notting Hill, Love Actually, all of that kind of genre. I read such a lot, so it's really difficult actually. It's called What Every Parent Needs to Know. It talks about early attachment and how you develop the early attachment and how all of those things are really, really important. We laugh a lot, so it's really difficult because we laugh at the silliest stuff, and I think if you laugh every day, then you kind of can put up with the stuff that's really heart-wrenching sometimes. What drives me is equality and the fact that everybody deserves somebody to believe the very best of them. Absolutely not. It was the furthest thing from my mind. Once I was in it, then once I was teaching, I knew that I wanted to go into leadership quite quickly. My first day here, I was actually a deputy. I remember being presented with a box and them saying that's all your plans in there, and I didn't really know what they meant, and the school at the time all the subject leaders had written all the plans for every single lesson right across all the year groups, so there was kind of no autonomy from the teaching staff and no individual lesson planning really from the teaching staff. And I remember thinking, and then feeling a bit like a rebel because it went in the back of my boot and didn't come out then until 2 years later. The project-based curriculum is question-led. As teachers and as a leadership team work together to create questions for each year group. And those questions are quite deep sometimes and really that instigate quite deep learning. We want always for our questions to motivate our children and really engage our children. There's a lot of challenge about trying to fit the national curriculum and the Sustainable Development Goals and trying to give credence to that and talking to our parents about why we're so passionate about fitting those Sustainable Development Goals in there. But also it's quite challenging for teachers to follow children. The idea initially of kind of following the children and letting the children take the lead eventually into what the products might look like is quite challenging for a lot of our staff. I think our biggest success is the fact that our wider community are talking about Sustainable Development Goals and they had no idea what they were 12 months ago. Go quite slowly with it, take off small projects first and build up from the project. So don't think I'm going to plan a term. You know, we started by planning 2-week projects and building it from there. Our year sixes at the moment, they're looking at how they can harness the power of the community to create an edible sculpture trail around the village. And so they've been to have a look at the sculpture trail because that gets people out in the environment. That's one part of the Sustainable Development Goals about good health and well-being. They wanted to link that with growing and the environment and growing our own food and food waste and having enough food and food poverty. They're working hopefully in the next term to create a trail that families can follow where there will be sculptures made out of plants, all of which can be used in food. So by the end of the trail, not only have they enhanced their health and well-being because they've been on a walk with their families, but they can also feed each other really great food as well that has been grown in the local community and that's really healthy and good for them as well. So so there's some really, really powerful stuff going on. One of our Year 5 questions last year was about how do we create a more sustainable farming system, and that was quite difficult because whilst the children were really engaged in it, it was quite difficult because it was so big. So I think one of the things that we're learning is to think quite big but quite local at the same time. So we don't have a behaviour management policy, we have a relationships management policy. So relationships are really important to us. The very first thing in our rounded and grounded framework, the first heart is having relationships, and then the first word in that first heart is respect. So it's absolutely founded on respect and mutual respect and giving respect even if you don't get it back. And it's also based fundamentally on the fact that most people do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And if they do the wrong thing, it may just be because, as we know, children are scientists, they experiment, they try things out, and they test things. So sometimes they don't know what the impact of an action or a behaviour is until they've done it. And then it kind of all comes raining down on the head sometimes. So we treat each wrong choice or each bit of conflict as a learning moment, and our children learn through all of those things. Because as well as learning how to read, write and spell and be scientists and be everything else, they're also at school to learn to be good people as well. It's been our policy for 8 years, so it's been our policy for a long time, but it's still challenging. It's challenging because it takes longer. It's easy to tell somebody off and say, right, this is the sanction. It's more emotionally draining as well, to be emotionally involved with it. And adults find that equally, possibly more challenging than the children actually. So in terms of recruitment and in terms of our current staffing, it is always an ongoing challenge about how our staff are managing that process and how they're managing themselves within that process and how they are in terms of their well-being within that process. Some quite thorny stuff comes out of those conflicts sometimes, and in terms of when we unpick certain behaviours, there's some safeguarding issues, some well-being issues that come out of those that have an impact on the adult involved as well. So it's about managing staff well-being. So it's much more time consuming than a traditional sanction system. So that is always a challenge. Because it isn't the traditional, it's not the expected method, our parents sometimes struggle with it. I'm very open about it when I show people around. I'm very open about what our methodology is and our policy is and our practice is, but sometimes our parents misunderstand that. We engage a lot with our parents in terms of talking to them as often as we can in lots of different contexts. There needs to be structures in place to support it. As an SLT, we are very supportive of our staff within it. We wouldn't necessarily get involved in the resolution of something, and sometimes we're a bit more removed from it, so it hasn't affected us as personally. But there's never a kind of people don't come to me because I'm the head teacher because I have more power than anybody else, because I'm just a person like everybody else in our school. There's no hierarchy of power in terms of, because we're not punishing, there's no hierarchy of, well, you'll go to Mrs. Tomlinson. It is just about me having more time sometimes, and a different kind of relationship. There are children who I have a stronger relationship with than anyone else, but equally there are children who I don't have a relationship with, so it wouldn't work for me to be involved in them. So I think the fact that it has to be whole school, that there has to be a support network around it, that there is an acknowledgement that it takes a lot of time and it's emotionally really draining. So we have systems in place like we have staff supervision to make sure our staff have someone that they can go and talk to if there's anything particularly affecting them. So there needs to be a kind of wraparound care for everybody within it as well. It's about the importance of sustainable development goals and about where that sits in the importance of everything else really, because I think Ban Ki-moon said there's no plan B because there's no planet B, but I think there's an idea about if you get 11 9s at GCSE it's all well and good, but not if you haven't got any food to eat.